Hello everyone. The STUDIOTEC project investigated film studios across 4 major European production sites, Britain, France, Germany and Italy, between the years 1930 to 1960. The project's time span covers a 30-year period when the studios reached a pinnacle of activity as concentrated creative and technical infrastructures. As material environments, studios contain multiple zones of collaborative activities. They have adaptable materials and spaces that shift from production to production. While studios often recede from visibility to make way for the illusion of cinema, they are emphatically material sites embedded in the histories of technology and architecture. They're shaped by designers, planners and engineers, and they're engines of novelty in industrial production methods, generating unconventional and even revolutionary creative practices. The project was designed to investigate these dynamics through primary historical research and data collection, and we also deployed visualization, 3D and VR technologies. This combination of methodologies was driven in particular by visual records, as I'm going to show you in the following slides, photographs, maps, aerial shots of studios and films that feature studio environments. Our research was structured around 4 major interrelated themes listed here: architecture and infrastructure, creativity, practices and innovation, politics and economics, and professional and labour relations. The images here illustrate special effects work on the left, studio architecture in the middle, and on the right the work of women editing films. Following this structure, the team consulted a wide range of primary and secondary sources available online in archives and libraries. We located a vast amount of visual documentation, including original architectural plans, giving precise spatial dimensions which informed the development of our unique VR experience that you'll see something of later. While imparting information about the studios in a new way, we felt that VR provided a sense of being there, and so can give the illusion of proximity to the historical world. So in these ways, the secrets of the studios are revealed. While studios are often about concealing the materials, labour and ingenuity that goes into the artifice of filmmaking, kind of invisible, at the same time they imprint the films produced at their stages, workshops and backlots. So our work aimed to make all of this more visible, to uncover this, to see both inside, outside and beneath the frame, delving into the studios of activity that the studios generated. The project's design and research promoted active engagements between film history, architecture, design, archaeology and computer science engineering. So we had a historical team working on Italy, Britain, Germany and France, but we also worked with computer scientists and colleagues from archaeology. The application of 3D and VR technologies enabled the project's film historians to inform a unique, spatially orientated experience of the studios. This required investigations into the studio's spatial dimensions, which led to the discovery of detailed architectural plans in local archives, for example Denham studios, which informed the technical work carried out in developing the VR, and its experience of a unique design. This particular design that we chose as a signature for our experience is based on the cross-structural model of the German Tonkreuz early film sound studio created at the end of the 1920s. And we used this cruciform sort of idea as a gateway to access for the participant in the experience to access four studios through VR, each from a different country. So we had Denham in the UK, you can go to Joinville in France, and both of these studios no longer are operational. And you can also go to Babelsberg in Germany and Cinecittà in Italy, studios that still operate. The VR experience of each studio was organised differently, and this decision ensured that both similarities and differences between studios could be communicated in diverse ways. At the same time, this approach ensured that VR's different capabilities are fully explored in relation to this unique subject matter, providing a means of exploring how VR can be used in 4 different ways to showcase different aspects of the studios. These images show the Tonkreuz studio in historical photographs. Today, the historical building remains as a film and TV stage complex within Germany's largest studios, Babelsberg, just outside Berlin. Here are some of the plans and photographs of Cinecittà, which we used as part of our research that informed putting together the VR experience, showing plans and photographs, and we also visited the site as it currently operates to aid our research materials. The first step in creating the Cinecittà VR experience was to digitise the site plan and determine the key buildings into a 3D model, with particular focus on the stage 8 to 9 complex, as these spaces would require the interior to be modelled. The spaces selected were based on the route that actors and actresses we felt would have to take from their dressing rooms to stage 8. And to add context, we include in this part of the experience a set from the film Bellissima, which was added to the stage. Cinecittà was designed by the architect Gino Perissuti, and many of the original schematics, sketches and plans have been recorded in a book by Sarah Martin, information that proved vital for 3D construction and additional reference documents that were brought by our researcher Carla Miro-Keating and Catherine O'Rourke. As the studios are still in operation today, with many of the original buildings still being used, architectural details could also be determined by using Google Earth and photography from site surveys of the studios. So by using this, it was relatively straightforward to model the exteriors, but a visit to Cinecittà was required to gather more information about the interior spaces and shoot the 360-degree photography. The central image on the slide shows the GoPro Max 360 camera on its tripod in front of the head sculpture from Federico Fellini's Casanova that was used for the 360-degree photography. Before the survey, we worked out the best positions for photos based on the site plans and the CGIs to maximise the visible buildings and correlate with the story narrative. These were decided to be the main entrance, the central area, stage 5, backlots, workshops, and ending with stage 8 and 9, so that the user could then enter this space to start a real-time experience. On site, Amy Stone, who created our VR experience, was mostly able to capture shots from these points, but she had to move slightly due to trees, vehicles, etc., and couldn't capture the intended shot behind stage 8 as confidential filming was underway, so a slightly different position was agreed with Cinecittà. Once the 360 photos were captured, a post-process of reorientating the images, removing the tripod and colour correction was undertaken using a program called Photo Affinity, and the edited images were then imported into the Unreal game engine. And then Amy worked with Carla Miro-Keating on a script for the story narrative, and the voiceovers were recorded. They also used aerial photographs to help understand how sites changed over time, and these images are of the Joinville studios in Paris, which operated between 1910 and 1987. Unlike many studios in the UK, they were located in an urban area, like a factory operating in a populated area and community. We also used surviving plans of specific buildings, such as this of the Electrics building in Joinville. We also used digimaps to show how sites were changed before a studio was built, as well as tracking later stages of its operation, as you see here. Now, Denham was one of Britain's major studios that operated in May 1936 and produced films until 1952. The studio has featured quite prominently in our research for its architectural design and association with many famous films shot on its stages, including A Matter of Life and Death, Brief Encounter, Great Expectations, and the Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. Historical sources for Denham are comparatively rich, including a film called A Day at Denham. This was a promotional short film released in 1939, quite soon after the studios opened. These stills from the film show workers and the craft skills involved in film production: women editors, plasterers and model building workshops, workers clocking on. And these all underscore the narrative about industrial efficiency the studio was keen to communicate. And it's unusual to get such a detailed account of a British studio, particularly one that's long gone. Denham was the biggest studio in Britain, employing 2,000 people. The stages were soundproofed by insulated square pattern cladding as part of the building's tectonic form and function. No other studio had its own processing labs, contributing to its reputation as a technological powerhouse. The only remaining part of Denham Studios in existence today is the lab building, designed by the famous German architect Walter Gropius, founder of the Bauhaus. And we see some images of the labs here. Now, Richard's going to talk more about the aftermath of Denham, but here are some images about the area where the studios were today, including the Gropius building. For our research, we used plans of Denham as well as historic photographs. This plan of the administrative block shows how the long corridor, and there were also glass-covered walkways, connected the main building with the stages. The two images above the plan are of one of the big stages. As working spaces, these contrast with the modern, sleek, outward-facing spaces of the studios. To create the Denham VR experience, Amy Stone started with a 360 animation, again like with Cinecittà, and mapped out the camera paths. After some initial experimentation due to the location of the railway line and river, the first camera path was determined to be along the tracks towards Denham Station, and a second path would start from the railway station and fly over the studios, ending at the Fisheries Estate alongside the river, and the final camera path starts behind the fisheries, panning across the studio frontage as seen from the North Orbital Road. The next step was to recreate the exterior environment using Google Map data and to ensure that the site looked the same as it did in 1936. So they used some of the historic map data from Digimap and aerial photography from Britain from Above. Once the environment had been completed, attention turned to the studio architecture. And so Amy Stone collaborated with myself and Richard Farmer, and asset reference documents were collected, including some of the photographs that I've already been showing you, published in architects' journals, and various reports that were made about the studio and its history. We also were able to unearth some original drawings and plans from the architects who designed the building. The 3D construction process for the real-time experience was the same as used when the Tonkreuz studio was created. But for the 360 animation, Amy Stone needed to use a different software package called Twinmotion that could generate the panoramic effect. So this was partly how this was allowed and able to be permitted to sort of use this interesting foray into how the studio might have looked at the time, and our recreating our own animation of it. And so Amy was able to add details such as vegetation and trees and grass, weather and other climatary conditions we were able to add. Animated cars and other effects could be completed. Once the panoramic video files were rendered, they were inserted into Premiere Pro for post-production effects and immersive video editing. Sound was then added, and various effects and voiceovers that myself and Richard did to animate this part of the experience. Images of Denham's interiors were very important as well, because as you see here, they really show very clearly the studio's modernist, streamlined design principles. For example, in the lobby, with its tiered upper floor space and curvilinear-shaped ceiling, as seen on the right. Geometric pattern stairway features at the entrance to the screening theatre in the image on the left. And the restaurant at Denham also had Art Deco-inspired bar fixtures. These spaces displayed materials such as stainless steel and chrome, which expressed the studio's technological Art Deco sensibility. They also served its public functions as spaces that were accessible to non-film industry people and for entertaining important visitors. The long corridor meant that actors and workers often had to walk long distances. And here's Alexander Korda, the head of the studio's Art Deco-styled office, and some images of some other working spaces taken from contemporary sources. Historic plans also allowed us to compare studio complexes, as with these plans of Denham and Pinewood. Pinewood, which of course remains as a major film studio today, was also opened in 1936. Documentation on Denham studios can also be found in the archives of the Prudential Group. This was a result of the company's financial backing of the studios and London film productions that operated there. These also offer some tantalising glimpses into the studio's materiality, such as this minute in the document on the left, from the Second World War. This is from a period when the studio was merged with Pinewood as a company and functioned as D&P Studios. Here we see the possibility being suggested of using Italian prisoners of war to work on sets for the film in production Caesar and Cleopatra in 1944. Now this leapt out to us as researchers as highly interesting, because we knew at the same time that in some German and Italian studios, prisoners of war were held captive in studios. They were also used as slave labour, and we know that as research on Cinecittà in Rome has shown, they were used as extras in propaganda films. The Prudential documents also provide key financial detail, which is often really hard to recover for studios or film companies. So the document on the right shows us how much the studio was worth in 1938, just under £1 million. And if you can take this as in any way accurate, a brief conversion to today's money brings that up to £65.5 million. The research was used to create the Denham part of our VR experience, and here are some images from that experience that you'll see on the video shortly. Other traces of the studio's material histories can be found in the papers of set designers, and their work can be seen here in documents such as the papers of Lazare Meersen, which are located in Paris, for the French film À nous la liberté, directed by René Clair in 1931. And here you see the elaborate set, that this kind of modernist set that was being built for this particular film. And now we have some more images that are really revealing, because they show the actual studio exterior, but then they show the set as built in the studio at Tobis in Épinay-sur-Seine, and then an aerial view of that studio. Some modernist sets for Italian films are also well documented in photographs, and we find these fascinating because they're a kind of architecture within the films and that was created within the studios. So there's a kind of double register of architectural interest here. And in this case, we see these really striking modernist designs for sets that were built in the Italian studios. And sets in other studios were also very fascinating, as the next slides will show. In the UK, at the Gaumont British Studios, set designer Alfred Junger designed sets for Hitchcock's films in the 1930s. And we can see how his designs were used in the films, functioning as kind of storyboard-like guides for shooting. Here we see how Hitchcock took a very small but apparently significant element of Junger's design in the image of the left of outside a dentist practice in London. And Hitchcock decided that this detail was so interesting that he would magnify it for a close-up, as we see in the image on the right, in the film The Man Who Knew Too Much. And in Black Narcissus, the famous film directed by Paolo Pressburger, Junger created the Himalayas in Pinewood Studios. Here we see the progression from design to set and to the final film. And I'll finish with some different versions of a very different set from A Matter of Life and Death. This time this one was shot at Denham and released in 1946. The Staircase to Heaven, which features as a very famous set in the film, affectionately known by the crew as Ethel when they built it in the studio, we can see it in its different incarnations here. The two images on the right show a photograph of the set being built in the studio. And beneath it, how the staircase looks in the actual film. Sorry, my face is obscuring that a little bit, but you get the idea, and if you know the film, you'll remember it because it's so iconic. Then on the left, there's the image of how this was recreated in our own VR experience, incorporating a clip from the film with our virtual reality set.